Here's an explanation of how to do this equivalent equations worksheet. So the instructions tell us that for each problem, two of the lettered equations at the bottom of each box, A, B, and C, are equivalent and one is not. So here's the equation for problem number 1. And then we see these 3 possible equations. 2 of them are equivalent and one is not. And you have to figure out which one is not. And for the equations that are equivalent, you have to write out what you had to do to the original equation to get to that equivalent equation. So I'm going to do an example. We have this, I retyped the original equation here each time so that you can use it to figure out how we got to this potentially equivalent equation. So I'm going to look here at this equivalent equation. I'm going to think to myself, what is different about it than the original equation? And what I notice is that the 3x is by itself. And here the 3x, we've added 6. So I'm going to see what happens if I get that 6 off of that side of the equation. So I'm going to do the inverse of adding 6. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides, subtracting it from the like term. And then I'm left with 3x on this side. 4x equals 4x. 7 minus 6 is 1. Aha! That is equivalent. Okay, so that's not the one that's not equivalent. So I'll just put a little check mark there. Then I would go and try another one. And I would ask myself, okay, what is different about the original equation and this? Well, here we just have 6 on that side. And originally we had 3x. So I would do what I need to do so that 3x is no longer there, right? I'd probably subtract 3x from both sides. And then I would see if it, I'll go ahead and do that. I would see if, what happens there. So then I get 6 equals 4x minus 3x is negative 1x or negative x. I could write it either way, plus 7. Now that is not the same as what we have here. So this should be our not equivalent equation. So we still have to do this one and see if it is equivalent. So you're going to do that on your own. See what operation you need to do to get it to look like this. And then if you can get it to look like that with using allowable math, right? Doing the same thing to both sides of the equation, addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division, then you'll put a little check mark here and you'll show your work there. So same thing here. We have 3 other equations. This one, 2 other equations and that one. And you have to do the same thing. And it gets a little tricky as we get down to number 3. So it's a good challenge. Then you're going to take a turn. We'll start with a different equation. And you have to write 2 equations that are equivalent and one that is not. So using any operations that you want, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, any of those to make 2 equations that are equivalent and one that is not. If you were not in class, then what we did is we wrote those equations again here. Here there's enough space where you can show your work. You could rewrite the equation here, and you could say, oops, I wrote it wrong. Oops, sorry. Oh, I wrote it wrong again. Right, so you could do whatever you want to do to make an equivalent equation, and then you write it here, here, and here. And then in class, we recopied those equations here, here, and here. And then we switched papers with another person. And that other person tried to see which of the above equations are equivalent and which one is not. And then we switched it again and did it again. Now, if you were absent, you'll be excused from this side of the worksheet. So you can just do page 1. And that's it.